I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Good afternoon, good evening, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes. Always a pleasure to be here on a beautiful fall evening in Salt Lake City. It has been, as always, a very exciting week. Not only did Film Facts magazine come out with a very wonderful article that we're going to be talking about, and I'm so lucky to be the subject of the article, but I also have been doing much more research with regard to the unfolding bombshells that are dropping with regard to Skinwalker Ranch and the false narrative that we have been that has been put forward about some of these things. We have Chris Marks on the second hour of the show, and I can tell you this will be one for the memory books, and I know that there will be many people listening to this show for that reason. So it's going to be a great night on UFO Classified. This is a listener-supported show, and I appreciate all of the people that contribute to help keep me on the air. It is an interesting thing, but I feel very strongly that I need to not be beholden to advertisers, that I need to have creative control over my show. This is a really important show, and I promise you, you are not going to get truth like this on any other radio show on this topic. And I mean that. I am here tonight with somebody for the first hour who has become a very, very, very dear person to me, somebody that I learned from, somebody that I respect tremendously, and he was doing work with NICAP back in the day when UFO research was respectable, and he did worked on incredible cases. He has written books, one book, Mysteries of the Sky, that he co-authored with Mcdonald. This book was one of the first books of its kind, and I'm going to have Gordon talk a little bit about that. If you can get this, I would highly recommend finding it on Amazon. You're going to have to get a used copy, but this should be on your bookshelf. It's incredible. And also his latest book, Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, the UFO Researcher's Odyssey, which you can get at Bear Matter Media and also online. I'll be writing places. Another great book. I love it. But Gordon and I are busy writing a book together. And this will be my first book. I'm so happy about it. I think the world of Gordon. I think the world of you. You know how much you mean to me.
Well,
I hope you do.
Thank you. The feeling is entirely mutual.
Well, good. We've had some interesting conversations, and I was so grateful that I got to come out to visit with you. And I really look forward to coming out there and doing that again.
Well, I hope you can come out soon. Indeed.
I hope so too.
We still got work to do on our book, and we'll just have fun here.
Well, I have no doubt about that. And hopefully we can finish watching that movie too.
That's correct. 2012.
I need to see the end of that. But I picked up my mail yesterday, and I was so happy with this Film Facts article. What is it? It's almost a 5-page spread.
Yes, that's correct. It's pretty much that, and I think Mike Stein, the editor and publisher of Film Facts, did a very good job. He dug out a lot of interesting photos, too, that we didn't have ourselves, and put them in the book, and he talked about your visits to Kennedy Castle and Leap Castle. I think Leap Castle in Ireland was supposed to be the most haunted castle in the world or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He also visited Whaley House, which is supposed to be the most haunted house in America, which is down in San Diego.
So yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing there as well. So.
Well, and it's interesting because most people don't realize that, I have been studying this, not just UFOs, but the paranormal, I mean, almost my whole life. It really
Yes,
is.
you
And
have.
so I have been all over the world going to these different paranormal hotspots. And, the Whaley House was really cool because I actually, this was a few years back, but I rented the house, and they basically left me in there with a handful of my friends, turned off the lights, locked the door, and we had a very interesting time.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So I want to ask you, because I've mentioned Mysteries of the Skies, and I really truly truly feel that is a book that people need to have in their library if they're serious about this work. Can you just tell us a little bit about Mysteries of the Skies?
Yeah, well, it was a book, actually, a co-worker at NICAP, the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena, when we were there in the 1960s. And we were interested in doing a book on UFOs, and we figured that, what has not been told yet about the subject? And really, we decided that we wanted to do a book on UFOs that went back before the famous Kenneth Arnold sighting. Now, Kenneth Arnold made a sighting in June of 1947 over Mount Rainier, Washington, where 9 discs followed him as he was approaching the mountain there. And he described them as like saucers skipping over water. Therefore, the term "flying saucers" was born as a result of that sighting. But what we wanted to do was go back for as much as 200 years and see if there were any sightings that could be explained as UFOs, or something that people saw in the skies that could not be explained. We found quite a bit. For instance, I did research in the National Archives, and would you believe that I found one sighting that was in Massachusetts, not too far from where our friend Barry Greenwood lives, in the late 17th century, where a man was poling his barge with 3 others on board down the Muddy River in Massachusetts, when they saw a huge disc that came out of the sky, came down, and started pulling the boat against the tide up the river. And a bunch of people on both sides saw it. And that was from the National Archives. Also from the National Archives, I found a report of a ship's captain, actually a whaling captain on a ship in the mid-Atlantic. This was 1840, I believe, who saw a disc-shaped object that came down, went under the surface of the ocean, then came back up, came over the ship, sprayed the ship with water, and disappeared. But we found many reports like that. The first 2 chapters of the book are on the airship sighting wave of 1896 and 97, where a lot of aerial craft were seen. And then we go into chapters where astronomers have seen UFOs that date way back, sometimes a couple hundred years, and also scientists and engineers. We go into the Foo Fighter sightings of World War II and the Korean War, and we have a chronology of flight in there, a bibliography of flight. I think you can still get the book on Amazon and eBay now. it's out of print because it was published in 1968, but it's a good book. It was the first one I think ever on the historic aspects of the subject per se.
And that is, and it is, that's why I just recommend it. It is really an important book. And as you and I have talked about many times, there's so many other books that are flooding the market about this topic. And really, 95% of them are, are not of the quality that this book is. Let me just say that.
I know. Well, when I did this book, Harold and Dalton. I did this book in the 1960s. There were probably less than 25 good books on the subject. Now there are thousands, and not all of them are good books either. But
no, I think there's a lot of
thousands of books on the subject, and you have to be very careful what you get because you might not be getting really good information.
Well, absolutely. And I think now, that is a very real concern, much more so than it was back in the 50s and 60s. Now we've got the internet, unfortunately, or fortunately, and we get so many people making up stories or, it's very hard to find good information. And that's why, this book is important. Clear Intent, Barry Greenwood is important. Larry Fawcett, the books like that are...
In fact, I can read you the advanced praise that Barry Greenwood gave me for Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth.
That would be great.
He says, Gordon Lohr provides us with a marvelous look at the golden era of flying saucers and UFOs, giving us an uncommon look at the past from the perspective of one who actually lived it as an official of NICAP in Washington, D.C. This inside look at many classic saucer sightings comes from the time when UFOs made national headlines, were the subject of official Air Force investigations, and were targeted for 2 congressional hearings in 1966 and 68. It is pure nostalgia for those curious about the controversy over life in space. And of course, the 1960s was really, I think, a probably the most prominent time in really good work and research that was being done on the subject, while at the same time we were fighting things like Project Blue Book, which was the Air Force department that was trying to really debunk the object. But Major Donald Kehoe, of course, was the founder of NICAP, and he was the head of it, the president. I later became the vice president. But he wrote the very first book, Flying Saucers Are Real, back in 1950, in the first article on the subject. He's fondly referred to as Mr. UFO because he's the man that really started it all. Although people were seeing the reports, they just weren't being reported in the way that they were after Kehoe. He's written 5 books on the subject. But I worked with him for almost 5 years, and it was really quite an experience. I've learned an awful lot.
Oh, and the stories, I love hearing, and you've been on the show before and you've talked about some of the people that you worked with, Isabel Davis. You had such a great crew there, and you also have mentioned to me, and on the air, off and on the air, about the deliberate takedown of the organization thanks to the CIA.
Yeah, I have that in my book, Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth. I was trying to persuade Kehoe, and at the time, Richard Hall, who was the assistant director at one time there, that because an individual by the name of Stuart Nixon came on board, and he almost admitted to me that he was a CIA agent who was there to oversee things, as he put it. I didn't come right out and say that, but he almost said it. And But for some reason, Kehoe and Hall didn't want to believe that. But and then, as it turned out, the powers that be actually gave Kehoe and I the boot back at the end of 1969, and it was taken over by this outfit that I think sort of just ran it into the ground. They soon lost all of their subcommittees, and we had about 35 subcommittees all around the world, from Australia and New Zealand to San Francisco, you know, that were really doing good work, and that was all lost in the 1970s. So it was a very rewarding experience for me. Kind of frustrating as a final year, because we knew, and of course the infamous Condon report, Edward Condon and the University of Colorado put out almost 1,000-page report at the beginning of 1969, saying in effect that just about all of the UFO cases, with few exceptions, were could be explained in terms that would preclude anything from outer space coming into the Earth's atmosphere.
And that must have been so frustrating for all of you, and heartbreaking, you know, because here you are, I mean, you're dedicating everything to unraveling mysteries and seriously researching case reports, and then, you know, you just get slammed down. And, you know, I that continues. I mean, it just seems like, you know, there's a positive gain, and then it's just slammed back down. Like the control system is just, you know, working overtime.
We were making very good progress there for a while, and people were really excited. And of course, back in those days, you had newspaper headlines that were really flooding the area, particularly during the 65, 66 Dexter Hillsdale, Michigan sightings, and others that followed. But of course, back in those days, you had mainly the newspapers and the radio. You know, you didn't have the internet and email and all that kind of stuff now. So you don't get the kind of coverage today that you got back then. I mean, you seldom see any more big headlines about famous cases, like the Socorro, New Mexico case, or even the Lonnie Zamora case of April of 1964, where a police officer outside of New Mexico, in New Mexico, saw a saucer that landed and 3 alien figures, which finally the alien figures jumped back into the saucer, took off, barely missing a dynamite shack. And those were the so-called occupant reports. And then you have some alien abduction reports. Actually, NICAP did a thorough job on investigating the first one that really we know about, and that was the Betty and Barney Hill case of September 1961. But you've had many such reports since then. So one of these days we may find out what's happening, and you know, I hope it isn't something like the day the Earth stood still, where we treat these extraterrestrial visitors with less than good intentions.
Yeah, well, I think if the powers that be had their way, we you know, that would be the case. I think it's really
that
been.
Could be, yeah.
It's sad now to see the way, you know, certain factions at present time are painting this. Now it's a threat. It's a threat. It's a threat. Everything is a threat, and I think that really sets up a pretty dangerous. Pretty dangerous narrative, and I know that people want to say that it's to obtain funding, and so we have to package it as a threat and all of this. But I whatever we are dealing with, whatever we have been dealing with since the beginning of recorded history, in my opinion, certainly is no more of a threat than the powers that be at certain times. I mean, it's pretty interesting, and I hope, you know, that I hope that good will prevail in regard to that.
Yes, I do too. Well, and of course, I think we should talk a little bit about Dr. James Mcdonald too. You know, he was a real force in the scientific arena there, and he had a tragic ending, but he was certainly somebody that I was very close to and had many meetings with, and he tried to persuade fellow scientists that there was something to the subject that really needed investigating. I think he turned a lot of heads around. People in the scientific community began to perk up, and then he had tragically apparently committed suicide in 71, I believe.
Well, and I would love to talk. We're getting ready to go to break, and I would love to talk to you more, about Dr. James Mcdonald, because he's one of those people that it is really critical for a younger generation who is getting into this subject, that they understand who he is. And that is my fear, now, because again, you've got, YouTube channels, and you've got all of this, hype on the TV about certain things. It's like nobody is paying attention to the people that paved the way for all of us to be here and have a productive dialogue. And we have that's, how passionate I feel about making sure that people have a lasting voice in this subject.
Absolutely. You're doing a wonderful job through your program and other means of keeping that alive out there. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it, and I feel so grateful, to people like you and to Barry and Jan Aldrich and things who have really just, wanted to help me and mentor me and teach me things, and also who have trusted me, and that just means the world to me, and I want to make sure that I do what's right, for all of you and for all of us. This is just too important.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you to say that.
Well, I feel the way I feel just like you do about this subject. It is a subject that deserves the utmost of respect, and I think that it's when we look at some of the current goings-ons, or we look at, in the past, some of the things that have happened have really been detrimental to the real science, to the real integrity of the subject. And I believe that, it might take a miracle, but we'll just keep trying to do what's right and what's best for the integrity of the subject and to educate the public. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so on that note, we're going to take our first break. I am Erica Lukes here with my friend Gordon Lohr, co-author. He wrote Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, a UFO Researcher's Odyssey. You can get that at Bear Manor Media. You can visit his website. I'll be providing links, and we will be back after this break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it, or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code RADIO10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio. Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
This one had apparently come off of the Dr. Phil show.
Oh, okay.
All right. And, was conveniently named The Birth of a Democrat. So let's see what they have to say.
You wrote into me. Tell me what you wanted me to get straight with your mom.
I want my mom to understand that I can't live off of $1,000 a month, and I grew up on a certain lifestyle. She can't just take that away from me immediately. If someone took her lifestyle away from her, she wouldn't like that. And I grew up on it. It's all I ever know. I can't deal with this.
So you want me to get her to do what? What would be the home run for you?
I need her to understand that I need at least $2,500 a month.
You want a G-Wagon for your 16th birthday?
I need my G-Wagon. There's no question. I need it. She wants to give me a Mercedes C-Class.
Only a C?
That car. I would
started with a Honda or a Toyota, and then it barely gets.
I will be happy with that car, but the thing is, I want my G-Wagon.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Are you ready to go?
Turn your radio.
It's showtime! You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Crank this up.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here on a Friday evening on KCOR. Special thanks to Tina Marie, who does a wonderful job producing my show and running the network. She works overtime to make me sound good, and I appreciate her very, very much. I'm also happy to be on a network with many other great people. David Cook, I can see in chat. Thanks for being here, Dave. And Doug Down Under Northern UFOs. I'm sure that Irv Brock and all of my supporters are out there listening, and I couldn't do this without you. And you actually are the reason I'm doing this. I believe that we deserve the truth. I believe that we deserve the best and to not be manipulated and played with, and to not have, unfortunately, myths created that can have a potentially very negative effect on people and the communities where these myths are propagated. I'm going to be talking to Chris Marks on the second hour of the show again, because there are unfolding stories emerging here, and this is big and important, and so stick around. But right now, I'm here with my friend, my co-author and mentor, Gordon Lohr, who did a brilliant job with an article in Film Facts magazine that he wrote. He did an interview with me, and you can get that. It is a beautiful, beautiful article, great pictures. It gives you a little bit more information into my life. And I am really happy that Gordon has been teaching me things and that we've had the opportunity to meet. Gordon, how long ago was it that I came down to visit you?
It was the first week in June.
Wow.
I came down with Jan Aldridge and Tom Tulane. Yeah, first week in June.
That was
incredible.
incredible.
Back.
I know.
We have still a lot to do and talk about, and have fun with.
I know we do. And I will say just, being there, and I've talked about this on multiple shows, but just looking through your case reports and the NICAP files and things that you had. I mean, it was just like, for me, I was a kid in a candy store. I couldn't believe I was looking at what I was looking at. And so to have somebody like yourself who has been so generous with me, teaching me and wanting the best for me, it really means the world to me. And I hope that someday I can do that for other people that have an interest in the subject. So thank you for everything.
Yeah. Well, I think I have a pretty good collection, but it can't compare to our friend Barry Greenwood. He has he's the archivist unparalleled in saving UFO reports, newspapers, magazines, clippings, you name it. He has it, and his purpose is to save them for future generations so they don't get lost. And he has a very good idea about saving them in several different locations. So if say, a warehouse burns down where the UFO material, at least you have it in several other places that can be accessed. And I think that's a wonderful idea and would be very important for generations to come to have access to this material.
Absolutely. And I mean, I firmly believe that there is a very concerted effort right now to sweep up data and to push it in a little black hole. And it's been interesting for me. I've done a lot of research about this in my time, in my private time, and can see the key players, see where research is going, see who's paying for what, funding what, and it is very interesting. And so the public really needs to understand that we have this is important. If you have access in your own area to any archives or things like that, please reach out to me, reach out to Barry. We need to make sure that this information stays in the United States, as a firm belief of mine, and that people have access to it. And so I've just learned a great deal from Barry about this subject and the importance of historical preservation. I'm working, and I just have to throw this out here because it's very cool. I've actually been in the past couple weeks, I have gotten the word that I will be obtaining a couple more really important archives, and so I'm very excited about that. I will make the announcements when I have things, and I will put that out there. But it really is cool to have a public space here in Salt Lake City where I can bring the people in, where they can learn, where they can educate themselves. That's important, and we all have to play a part in this, in historical preservation.
Yeah, I wish I could see your archives, because I understand that you have one of the very best, at least in the west of the Mississippi, if not throughout the whole country, and you're doing a wonderful job yourself, along with Barry and a few others, and preserving all this information. So how many UFO books do you have now? It's well over 1,000,
Oh,
right?
well over 1,000. I mean, I have several, I have Keith Chester was the first person who kind of started me off in this. Half a decade ago, he sent me a huge box full of his things, and that was really incredible. He didn't know me, but he could tell by my tenacity and what I was trying to accomplish that he could trust me, and that really started it all off. And then thanks to Barry and different people, Fran Ridge, getting me information, research, Rich Vitello. Sure. There's some it's been incredible. And like I said, it really, 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 when I get a shipment from somebody who's graciously donated their archives to me, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to open that, because it's such a gift to me, and it means
very
lots.
Important. That stuff is really being and of course you and Barry Greenwood too is just doing a remarkable job on saving all of that stuff and archiving it, and otherwise it could well be lost. He told me the story about APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, where all their files were lost. And we just can't allow things like that to happen. I mean, we would just lose too much. I mean, imagine if all the NICAP files were lost and Fran Ridge and others couldn't, and Barry particularly. I mean, he's just out there all the time. In Chicago at the Center for UFO Studies, which, of course, J. Allen Hynek founded. And he's out there all the time just scanning stuff in for future use and doing a remarkable job.
I've never seen anybody like Barry, ever. I mean, it's been incredible to watch.
Well, he's become a very good friend of mine. He was only, when I was back in NICAP, he was only a young teenager. But since then, he's spent like 55 years just archiving this stuff and searching. He's gone to university libraries from Harvard to to the West Coast, and just spent thousands of hours in libraries and archives and universities, just digging out all this information he could find.
It's incredible. And I'd love, we'll Skype frequently and things, and I just love looking at what's behind him, just these rows and rows of amazing things. I wish I could just be a fly on the wall and look through some of the stuff that he has there. It's incredible. It's been fun to get to know all of you, and like I said, I look forward to carrying everyone's work forward and trying to do something good with it. And, we were mentioning on the last half of the show, we were talking about Dr. James Mcdonald. And again, here's a person who most people coming into the subject don't even know about. And I would like you to tell everybody a little bit more about him and why his contributions have been so important.
Well, I'll try. Yeah. He came into the NICAP office. It was about 1966, maybe 67. And he was a scientist who just said he had heard about the subject. He thought it was interesting. He wanted to find out a little more about it. And so my late wife and I, Marty and I, were there and greeted him. And so we took him in the back where sighting reports were. At the time, we had about 12,000, I guess, reports, something like that. And he sat there for 3 hours, and he says, he came back out, and he says, it's amazing. He says, I never knew that such reports existed, and what is being done, And so we went through how we had a number of scientists that were working and whatnot. And he immediately became interested. It became a prominent promoter of good scientific research. And I know that he told us that he had been getting a lot of negative feedback from the U.S. government officials about his probing into many UFO cases. And he felt that there was like a strong feeling from these people that he was beginning to sway a number of prominent scientists and others to take a more scientific look at the many hundreds of excellent reports from highly qualified witnesses. But he soon learned that the government and military officials and others did not want that to happen. And at NICAP, we even, Dick Hall and Kehoe and myself, began to wonder whether or not there may have been some kind of a nefarious plot to silence him. It was a very disturbing thought. But then later he indicated to Hall and I, doing a visit to our home in Bethesda, Maryland, that he may have actually been targeted by stealthy individuals in black vans who were following him around areas close to his home in Phoenix, Arizona. And he had some of his UFO material had actually been stolen from his seat on several airline flights. And he also related that during his last visit to our home, I think it was in May 1971, he had gathered all of the material he needed to write and published his own book on UFOs. But then about a month later, he was found deceased in the desert with a gun. He supposedly committed suicide because he did apparently suffer, unfortunately, from a bipolar condition. But that's a whole other story. But I have a whole chapter in my book, Flying Saucers Beyond the Earth, about him, and he plays a prominent part. And he was really he wrote so many papers about the subject that he began to convince many of his fellow scientists. He even wrote one for the United Nations, for Utah, who was the ambassador to the United Nations, the president, the main guy at the United Nations. I forget what they call him these days. And it got him interested in the subject. So he was really getting to make great progress when he was all of a sudden died at a young age, a relatively young age.
You know, and I won't mention names, but you and I had a conversation about somebody that was fairly close to him, and you had mentioned that person did not think that his death was an accident. Yes, that is correct. Well, she wrote the book called Firestorm, Dr. James E. McDonald's Fight for UFO Scientists. I don't think she would mind. She's 93 years old now. I've been trying to contact her. Andruffle. Andruffle. What the heck? I just said it. You did. I hope. But I've been trying to call her, but she's not responding. And, you know, the last time I talked with her, which was about a year ago, she still thought I lived in New Mexico. So. Well, but and you did tell me that because she never wanted to go. You know, she didn't publicly state that, and specifically in her book, but that she had mentioned to you that she felt there was something nefarious. Yes, she did. She did. Although she reported accurately that he did have this problem and probably took his own life. Yeah, but she also said that he related to her that he had been followed around the city in unmarked vans, and that he would take a briefcase full of UFO materials, and then one time he kind of carelessly laid it down on the seat, laid it down on the floor of the plane beside his seat, and then took a nap. And when he woke up, there was a black suitcase there, but when he opened it, there was nothing in it. So somebody had apparently taken his suitcase and put down a black briefcase that looked exactly like his, with nothing in it. You know, and it's interesting because I remember Ted Rowe, and I don't know if he ever said this on air, but has had a conversation. I've had many conversations with him. He was the executive director for NARCAP, and he was at a meeting, lunch meeting with Dr. Haynes, Dick Haynes, and they had a briefcase, and very, very similar circumstances took place at that meeting, and their information, everything was gone. So that is quite interesting to see. And I you know, it's very difficult sometimes to separate, you know, paranoia from actual things. But if anybody were to have these events happen, it would be somebody like James Mcdonald, because he was pushing boundaries. He was changing people's minds, opening their minds, doing really important work. And so it would just, in my opinion, I mean, of course, people would have an interest in that, just like the powers that be would have an interest in all of the UFO organizations, as you have mentioned about the CIA infiltration and eventually disruption of NICAP, takedown of NICAP. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that did happen, and I think that's what forced
keyhoed myself out at the end of 1969. I think the CIA finally took it over. They implanted Stuart Nixon in there as sort of the takeover guy, and he ran it for about a few years after that, but they soon lost all of their important subcommittee members and kind of ran it into the ground.
And so why do you think that is? Why would the government go to such great lengths to disrupt the study of this topic?
I don't know. I think that we were getting so close to possibly explaining or possibly revealing that UFOs may be indeed and probably were extraterrestrial probes from someplace else outside of Earth, and the Air Force just didn't want to admit that. But then we had to. We showed that through one of the first Freedom of Information Act things ever done, I think, back in the 60s. We published the Project Blue Book and signed a book in which we were able to get UFO reports. Dr. James Mcdonald says the first 2 years of Project Blue Book, they did some credible work, but then after that they began to negate it all. You know, almost every report that came out said that it was either a fraudulent report, people were playing a hoax, or they were just some kind of weather or other phenomena other than something that could not be explained. But there are a number of interesting reports in that. And then, of course, I did the book Strange Effects from UFOs as well back in 1969, where we finally got into the talking about the occupant reports. People were seeing occupants and inside and outside UFOs, as well as some reports of flying saucers that landed and actually conversed with occupants on Earth and then quickly took off again. So it's we thought back in the 1960s the reports were coming in so fast that the mailman would bring huge sacks of mail from around the world, that we thought that the story was going to break at any moment. Matter of fact, I was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, fielding calls from as far away as Australia and New Zealand, from Washington, D.C., wanting to know more about these reports of these strange things seen in the skies. And but you don't see that anymore today because there's just so much other activity out there now that you don't see the blazing headlines today that you did back in the 60s.
Well, it's interesting because now, you do see, now we've got the Navy coming out and we've got the Tic Tac video and the Nimitz.
That's true. You got the AATIP program and the Navy coming out, so there's new things happening, and who knows, is it going to be another Condon type of thing where they finally cover it up, or are they going to let it loose? I guess only time will tell.
And what are the motivations?
More promising than anything we've seen in recent years, I think. Don't you?
Yeah,
think so?
You know what? I think it's very interesting. I think there are lots of layers to this, as there always is when it comes to the UFO topic, and getting the powers that be to reveal any information. I think that it's it's been great that the New York Times broke the article, and as a result, back in a couple years ago, December.
December in 2017. When that
and so, and I mean that was good because it gave the topic more credibility, and I'm grateful for that. I think people that wouldn't have an interest in it are now turning turning around and saying, wait a minute, wow, I just saw this on MSNBC or CNN or, all sorts of things. And so that really is a good thing. But then, there's the other side of that where it's like, is this just another attempt to manipulate and steer the narrative? And
that's correct. That's what I've been thinking too. We thought the Condon report and things like that would finally they're going to break loose and tell us something positive about the subject, but it didn't happen. And I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. I might turn blue and die.
Well, I think it is interesting, and I think that people need to step back and understand that there have been a lot of games at hand since the late 40s, and so for us to just take things at face value could be potentially not a good plan. So look at motivations, look at the way, I pay a lot of attention to statements made by some of the people that are involved in this, because when you listen to the language, it's the repeated, and like I've mentioned before, the threat, and that really bothers me. And so,
even the TP program has that word threat in it, But why do that if you want a positive outlook on the subject? It seems to be negative again. So I don't know, aerial threat.
Right, yeah, and that does give me pause, and I think it should give all of us kind of a pause to think about that. There have been many, we have reports from all over the world of people having different types of encounters, and very rarely do we have anything that has resulted in, maybe Brazil was, there were deaths and different types of things. But so we have to look very carefully at some of the things and the way they're being presented. I am Erica Lukes here with my dear friend, co-author Gordon Lohr. I'll be posting links to his books. You should get them. Definitely Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, the UFO Researcher's Odyssey. I love it, and I'm happy that Gordon is in my life. We will have him back. Thank you, Gordon, for being here. We are going to take a break.
Well, thank you for being here, too.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break. Chris Marks is up next, so grab a margarita. You're definitely not going to want to miss this one. We'll be back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here and see all of my friends in chat and to know that you are all listening. I get more and more emails and messages from people all over the world who are listening to the show, who are understanding that there is something important about UFO Classified. I am a listener-supported show. I do that, and I appreciate all of your support because I want to make sure that I maintain my integrity instead of bowing down to specific sponsors. I am here for the truth, and I am dedicated to making sure that happens, even if that ruffles some feathers, particularly of people who have been building a narrative for reasons that are soon going to be exposed. And as you know, over the past few months, I have been doing a series of interviews. I brought on Chris Marks a few months ago, who formerly worked for Bigelow Aerospace, worked for Bass, was at Skinwalker Ranch for 6 years. I brought on his colleague who was also with Bass, Chris Bartell. Chris Bartell will be coming on next Friday, and let me tell you, the bombs are going to continue to drop. This is important. This is the rewriting of a narrative, and it is groundbreaking. As I watched and have learned more, Chris Marks and Chris Bartell are going through some interesting things. This has been a very difficult period, I think, for all of us because we are coming to realizations, and they're not the realizations that we may have had coming into this. And so I want to just thank both Chris Bartell and Chris Marks for coming forward. It hasn't been easy. I know that Chris Marks was attacked for saying, taking on a couple people in the field. The more I learn, the more I understand that justification for that. And so Chris, I want to say, thank you again for coming back. This is really important. These are people's lives that have been played with, and I am very, very sorry to see some of the things and the emotions that you're going through as a result of this. And so, where are you at tonight?
Thank you, Erica. Yeah, it's interesting. When I came back in, I was out of this whole thing. I was not part of this whole narrative. I came into it about 5 months ago because of a documentary that just was really telling a very false narrative. And it has been an interesting journey. My views on the ranch have changed so much. The more I learn, it's like every night I go to bed, I have a different perspective. I have reconnected with Chris Bartell and others that were up there. They will all be coming forward. I have met with several scientists that were at the ranch during my time that I worked with. Met person to person in Las Vegas with them, and I had specific questions. There were a lot of rumors about medical testings and things that were done. There were also, I dismissed them. I was a good ranch guy, and I tended to really believe in the mission. But the more I am learning, the more I am under the impression that we were the mission, not the ranch was the mission. And a lot of things that I saw over the years didn't make sense. The bean sprout project, for example, that was put up there, where they grew a crop in Vegas, and I was actually in charge of maintaining the crop on the ranch. I always wondered, why would you, it wasn't like temperature controlled, it wasn't controlled at all. The only thing is you put water on them. There were no, so you turn on the AC, the temperature changed, there was no pressure control, there was no atmospheric control, there was nothing. And I wondered, how would that compare to some beans, being cultivated in Vegas? Different altitude, different temperatures, everything. Didn't make sense. Found out later on that those bean sprouts were actually used for measuring at universities, not saying at the ranch, but at universities for radioactive absorption. So a lot of things came clear because I was always wondering, why did we have no equipment? Why was there nothing up there? Why did we operate with gas station flashlights and literally no equipment? Why did we buy our own, and why did it not matter if somebody didn't go out for 2 weeks and binge watch Spartacus? it apparently didn't matter. Nobody checked. So over the time, when I first did my first interview with you, I was wondering sometimes, especially after Reno and the medical testings that Chris and I went through, were we the hamsters or were we the white coats?
Right, and
or
both of
were we
you
both?
said that, right, and both of you have said that, and you started really, really questioning that, and then, the Keith Basterfield wrote an article, and that came out, and that, a light turned on.
Yeah, light's been turning on, and here's what Keith actually did. And Keith Basterfield, thank you so much for your assistance and help and for your research. I'm going to be quoting something that you published Wednesday, September 25th, 2019, Skinwalker Ranch, 2010 through 16. Background, ALSAP. ALSAP stands for the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program. So you've been researching this a lot, and here's what you've actually, this is the going into your article. You say that the 16th December 2017 edition of the New York Times featured an article written by Helene Cooper, Ralph Blumenthal, and Leslie Keene, which revealed the fact that the U.S. Department of Defense had spent $22.5 million on a program titled the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP. One particular article or paragraph of the article caught my eyes. There was a mention of former Senator Harry Reid and Las Vegas businessman Robert Bigelow. Mr. Reid said his interest in UFOs came from Mr. Bigelow. In 2007, Mr. Reid said in the interview, Mr. Bigelow told him that an official with the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, had approached him wanting to visit Mr. Bigelow's ranch in Utah, and this all led to the establishment of the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Application Program, ALSAP, and the program director that was actually confirmed to me that was on the ranch and visited the ranch was a Mr. James James Lakatsky. He was the manager of the ALSAP program from 2008 through 2011, and he was observed actually visiting the ranch up there. So then I looked at, again, thanks to Mr. Basterfield.
Right, and Keith Basterfield has done an amazing job with this. We want to thank him.
It's amazing. So I found out further, the contract for this weapons program ran, the contract is named HHM 402-08-R-211. Again, that's Hotel Mike 402-08-R-0211. And it ran between, I read from the contract, it says the terms of the contract is from the date of award through September 30th, 2009. The contract will have 4 one-year options for the period of September 29, 2008 through September 30, 2013. Statement of objectives for the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program, 18 July 2008. It goes further down and it talks about the requirements for the contractor. And it's very interesting because it says the contractor shall propose key personnel that have experience in those areas. Requirements. The contractor shall complete advanced aerospace weapon system technical studies in the following areas: 1, lift; 2, propulsion; 3, control; 4, power generation; 5, spatial and temporal translation; 6, materials; 7, configuration structure; 8, signature. This is interesting. 8 is signature reduction, optical, infrared, radio frequency, and acoustic. Number 9 is human interface, and number 10 is human effects. Number 11 is armament. Another requirement of the contract was that at least one member of each analytical team must have a PhD. We certainly had that. And then the place of performance, it goes on and on and on and on. What I'm getting at is there are more and more documents pointing in the direction that testing has been conducted at the ranch. There is another report that is by quoting the Silva record that goes into caudate and put them in testings. And it's interesting if I compare the caudate and put them in testing in the Silva record, compare that to the record I've actually had laid eyes on, which was emailed to me, interestingly enough, by an individual I will not disclose here. But I actually have the medical study that was conducted on Skinwalker Ranch.
And so let me just go back to this, because this, I want to read this again. I mean, this is pretty. The contractor shall complete this complete advanced aerospace weapons systems technical studies in the following areas: lift, propulsion control, power generation, spatial temporal translation. 6, materials, configuration structure, signature reduction, as you pointed out, optical, infrared, radio frequency, acoustic, human interface, human effects. And so, I mean, was there a point in time, did you or Chris Bartell ever know that you were, I mean, other than you thought that you were going into a place where there was paranormal phenomenon, did you ever think that there would be any health effects from your time spent at the ranch?
Look, nobody even knew ALSEP was even in effect. We were part of ALSEP. We had no idea. Nobody knew. Matter of fact, one of the scientists I talked to only saw and actually had an idea that ALSEP was going on between 2008 and 2011 because they put a document up online and redacted it so poorly that it was right there. I mean, it was right there online. Very few people, key personnel, knew ALSEP happened. We had no idea we were even part of this. And to top it all off, you know, we were at the ranch with the whole intent of researching paranormal activity. We knew it was a government contract. However, we did not know that we were the people that were experimented on, or I believe we were. I will get more into the depth of this as we are getting more and more of documentation evaluated that's coming in. Like I said, this ran between 2008, 2011. I know that Chris and I went to Reno, got all kinds of mad testings done on us. Of course, we're military vets. We're like, okay, what's the order? Sure, we go. We didn't ask questions.
Right.
It came out after. And then talking to other former BAS members, they didn't undergo the intensive medical studies that Chris and I did.
Because you guys spent the most time on the ranch. So you were exposed to what?
Yes. I don't know what we're exposed to. But I'm a little worried because I surely don't want to sign off at 65 with, MS or something. I don't even know what happened. I do not know what we were exposed to up there.
And whether it was, UAPs, something paranormal, whether it was something man-made, the fact that you were put into a situation where, you were tested medically and not really given an answer about what you were up against. And I know that when we talked to Chris Bartell earlier today, and he said that when he left, he was trying to really get closure on all of this, and had asked specifically for a meeting with Kelleher, and was put off, and he could never get that closure, or could never ask questions about specifically what took place at the time.
Well, in Chris's case, it's also that there were some medical implications that happened thereafter that are, of course, they're private. He has, children, and we're wondering what happened. What actually happened? What was changed? What was altered? Because,
yeah, right.
Can you?
Yeah. So yeah.
And so in
right. Yeah, I mean, so absolutely, I mean, and I agree. We're wondering what's changed in different things, and I think that, that is good. But I mean, what I want to ask you though is what, I mean, why, as you are going through all of this, and you guys are beginning to see what some of the repercussions could be, and you're learning that they're doing these significant studies, elsewhere. I know Dr. Gary Nolan has been working with Dr. Kit Green on not only the Rendlesham people, but also other experiencers who have been injured by quote unquote UAP and different things. And so, obviously you were a part of that study. So, I mean, So
here's what's popping up over and over. And like I said before, and I've put it on Twitter earlier, and I'm doing this also for some sort of an insurance policy, because the threat level, since we actually have began to shine a light from a different angle on things that I'm learning as I go. I mean, I'm perplexed, I'm frustrated, I feel betrayed in many ways, because what we thought the mission was is apparently not at all what the mission was. So what's coming across more and more is something that's called bidirectional mimicry. There is more and more coming across about DNA sampling, DNA testing, how the bidirectional mimicry is not traceable. Looking at and I'm not going to go into depth as of yet as far as all the medical studies, but I just want to, for clarity, and for the ones that say, well, what does he have? So I want to just reach into a little bit of what's labeled the overarching conclusions. And it goes into, there's a significant overlap with ranch cases, 20 cases from the ranch. And it goes on and on and on about actually documenting 20 BAS employees and the medical testings that goes from urine sampling all the way up to MRI, DNA, EEG, EKG, blood work, and whatever else was done. The bottom line is that we're combat vets. We're not frickin' hamsters, and there's an answer that's owed to us. What happened? And I'm tired of these clowns going up there and talking about hunt for the skinwalker and, oh my God, this happened and that happened and the wolves and, okay, great, awesome, got it. It's been told for 30 years. Add more history, add more effects and add more black walls with crazy writings on them and whatever. Over it. There's a different angle to this, and it's time that angle is actually put forth the way it needs to be put forth, because people were put at risk, and I am not going to have it.
And I agree. It's been pretty heart-wrenching, actually, to listen to your conversations with Chris, and for both of you. You think you have both stated numerous times that the ranch is a very, very special place, and that there is something paranormal and something incredible taking place there. But perhaps, the whole reason that you were there, I mean, obviously it wasn't necessarily to really fully study that, because you weren't given the tools, but you were put into situations and you were tested medically. So what does that mean? I think that there are so many questions that need to be answered, and I think the more that we dig into this, and the more we look at some of the games and the sideshows that have taken place with regard to this, and the fact, and I want to just mention this, that there are specific people that were involved in this that didn't step foot on the freaking ranch. Why is that?
Right. Why is it that it's interesting to me? Why is it that in the 6 years I was there, I've never seen. I've seen one scientist that I actually worked with. That was it. Why was it that there was no SOP that would dictate what you're researching or what you're doing? It was basically, as long as you were up there and that was good. The research that we did was on our own accord. like Chris and I were out there day and night, and we got a lot of stuff. And a lot of it is documented on the reports that and now you as well have, and about 1,000 or so pictures of actual tracks, of actual measurements, of GPS coordinates, of things that actually took place that I cannot, to this day, cannot explain. But at the same time, we were studied up on, and it's clear. I mean, we had a fridge up there in the double wide that was dedicated to specimens, as in urine and whatever else. I also recall there was some mouth swabbing, which we never thought much about that back then. But hell, how do you collect DNA? That's how you collect DNA. So the more I get into this, the more I am getting the feeling of just betrayal. And I'm tired of these people that come out and build careers on a false narrative and try to make yet another documentary about something that doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. It's been irrelevant from the day that we stepped forward and corrected some of these false narrative allegations. I mentioned before the black limousines that we drove. No, there were Enterprise rent-a-cars and all that other nonsense. I mean, I'm just so over it.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you were subjected to things, and not given the tools or anything, not given any information.
Do you know how much DNA I collected out of these tracks?
Right, and we're getting ready to go to break, so we'll talk about that after. But I
want to know what happened to it.
Yeah, well, and what I just want to say again, I'm not really. This is a big story. Something happened there. People's lives were affected. They weren't given the tools or understanding, and there's a lot more to this story that will be unfolding. I'm Erica Lukes. I'll be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Are you ready to expand your consciousness? Ready to dive deep within this profound planetary ascension? Then you're ready for the Universal Consciousness Show. Live Mondays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Hosted by Augie Nost and Diana Seraphim. It's time to expand your consciousness. A time to learn new modalities. To further understand
The
Universal Consciousness Show will take you on a magical journey as you explore an array of possibilities. From the paranormal to UFOs and aliens, as well as banned medical cures, you'll learn to activate knowledge hidden deep within your DNA.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Hosted by Augie Nost and Diana Seraphim. Live Mondays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. A deeper understanding of the universe is but a show away.
Vegas, baby! Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix.
The Paradigm Matrix.
Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
1, 2, 3, 4!
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds. Love the music. I listen all day.
The future of radio is here and now.
Do you love new music?
Yeah!
Then tune in to the Americana Music Radio Show, Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, from the West Coast to the East Coast, and everywhere in between. Your host, Charles Christian, will introduce you to the artists both old and new, the Americana Music Radio Show, where we showcase new local talent, as well as international artists, as well as showing you where Americana music is happening and who's making it happen, both here in the U.S. and around the world. The Americana Music Radio Show, hosted by your musical aficionado, Charles Christian, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last portion of UFO Classified. I'm Erica Lukes. You can find me at UFOclassified.com, ericalukes.com, Facebook. I try to tweet. I am not the social media maven that I should be, but I do have a day job. Dang, I hate that. My passion is researching something that is, in my opinion, one of the most critical subjects on the planet. There is something very real that is interacting with us. There is something very real and profound and sacred that is happening at Skinwalker Ranch. Make no mistake of that. This is not just all about testing, but unfortunately, as the months progress and as I begin to really dig into this and look, and more information is being released publicly, more questions arise about what specifically was taking place at Skinwalker Ranch. And now with Keith Basterfield, who's written 2 really great blogs, we appreciate that, looking at the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, looking at the fact that there were some pretty interesting things that were being done. And watching Chris Marks and Chris Bartell, who were at Skinwalker Ranch, who spent more time there than almost anyone, 6 years living there, investigating, putting themselves out into the elements and having an incredibly profound experiences. But then also there's this element that now these documents are coming forward, and they were obviously had to do medical testing. Why was that? Was it because they were being exposed to UAP? Was it because they were being exposed to some sort of weapons testing? What was it? But either way, they did that without any knowledge of that they were signing up for. I sit here with my jaw on the floor because the implications for this are just absolutely stupefying. And so as much as I would like to sit here and go into, debunking or addressing what parts of certain documentaries were not factual or not, I think that this is so much bigger than that I really, I don't even know where to begin, Kirsten. I'm sorry that you're having to go through this.
It sucks. It absolutely does suck. Because, we went up there with, Bartel, me, John, and a bunch of us, really trying to document. And we went in there. We are all former or still are military cops. We all have law enforcement backgrounds. We are not. We were recruited to this because of our backgrounds. I'm an MPI investigator. I also worked top secret military intelligence in Iraq. I'm not somebody that's just stumbled up from the street and just walks in there and goes like, "Oh, there's Casper the Ghost." All of us. One of my other partners who will be coming forward was in charge of nuclear transporting of nuclear weapons in the Air Force. We all came from a background. We're not just some dumbos that took a job.
Right, and I have to
we all got recruited for that.
And in this contract, it said security requirement contractor company and personnel proposed shall be clearable and able to obtain security and facility clearance upon award of the contract. And so, I mean, it's
we all
fit the
all
bill for that.
hold. We still, or some of us still do, but at that time we all held secret DoD clearances. And some of us held TSs. I worked under TSs. We were not just walking in there, setting up a camera someplace and popping a beer can. We were not calling ourselves really researchers. We were looking at ourselves as investigators because we all had done investigations in civilian law enforcement, in military law enforcement. Some of us worked in Iraq and Afghanistan and did investigations there. We all brought something to the table, and that's how we approached it. We went in there hard charging. Chris and I freaking slept out in the East Valley and up on the Mesa. Most of our deployments, we were out there. We never even went to the house because we wanted to be there. We wanted to document. And we did document a lot. It was interesting to note that when we came close to something, we got a cease and desist from headquarters. Don't do that. Don't go there. Don't do this. Stop investigating that. That's not part of it. And we're like, to hell with that. Of course, we kept on investigating our cases, and we got the documentation to show, and there was something. There is something. But the fact is that OZAP was conducted there. The fact is that the DIA program director visited the ranch and was witnessed by several people. A scientist I've spoken with very recently confirmed that as well. The fact is that I have gotten a hold of the overall medical study that was conducted. The fact is that in it are 20 BAS members mentioned. The fact is that two very particular, and I believe it's Bortel and I, they show workups on MRIs and brain scans, and they lay things open that are just, and they talk about fluid changes, and it's incredible. It's incredible. The fact is that there was no equipment to research at the ranch, because we were probably the ones that were being researched. And the underlying fact, and this is the most significant of it all, we had no knowledge. We were not asked to participate. We were not given any kind of notice. In fact, we didn't even know OSEP was at the ranch. We didn't know we were part of a weapons research program. I learned this now. I learned this like in 2019. I deployed to Afghanistan in 2016. That was my last time at the ranch. And I am so, the more I learn, the more I look into this, the more I feel absolutely betrayed. And the more I look into the medical part of it, interestingly enough, the final sentence, the final line says, they are talking to us now.
Well, and I think it's interesting because, you look at some of the things, and I was listening to an interview, and in this interview they were talking about Dr. Nolan's work with some of these people that, like I was stating with Rendlesham, people that, like Chris Bledsoe, people that have had UAP encounters or, what have you, ranch people. And apparently the electromagnetic fields being exposed to this leads to inflammation in the brain, and other biomarkers can be seen, eyes, tissue, blood, all sorts of things are happening. And so, was this, what was the result? I mean,
Let me ask you this. And this is something that, I'm not going to mention his name, but the physicist that I worked with, that I met with, his take, because we spent 5 hours just talking and rehashing things and exchanging information. He asked me, point blank, he goes, what do you think was real and was not? What part of it was man-made?
Right.
What part of the environment was created for testing? And which part of it was paranormal? And it goes back into, I think I talked about this in one of the prior interviews with you. There were profound experiences of extremely bright light that happened. Usually about 1 in the morning, after midnight, 12, 1, 2, always within that time pattern. The light was so bright that I shielded my eyes and I could see my tissue and my bone structure in my veins. I mean, I could see everything through my closed eyelids with a hand covering my eyes because it was so bright, and my eyes still hurt after. This happened a good half a dozen of times. Not just myself. It happened to Chris. It happened to my other teammates. We all have experienced that extremely bright light that came out of nowhere. What was it? Why was it happening so frequently? Why was it happening a half a dozen times to me, and then a half a dozen times to Bartel, and half a dozen times to John, or the others? And what was that? What was it? Was it paranormal? Or was it something man-made? And so I researched, and I heard a lot of rumors, and I dismissed a lot of the stuff as conspiracy theory in the beginning because it was just too irrational. And so we're talking about X-ray, we're talking about gamma, we're talking about different ray structures. I thought that was absolutely nonsense. Not so anymore. Maybe there's something to this. And I was also explained that exposure to gamma rays does not leave a lasting signature of radioactivity. It's compatible to, getting X-rays or flying in an airplane. I'm not a scientist. I'm a investigator. But in that role of investigations, I can certainly tap into and will tap into the people that have the knowledge to explain this and come up with a possible scenario. I want to know what happened. And I want to know what happened to us because there have been apparently changes.
And so I've got a question from Northern UFOs about Bigelow. Is he involved in the ranch in any way, shape, or form? From my knowledge, no. Why would he sell it if all these abnormal events were happening? For me to answer that question, I would say because the funding dried up. But
the OSEP ended in 2011, and after that, at some point, Bass was dismembered, and then he sent up his aerospace security guards up there. It didn't matter anymore if you had a clearance. It didn't matter your background. They just sent his gate people, that ID card people up there. And believe it or not, they actually took ID cards of the garbage truck driver. Hey, what's your name? Show me your driver's license. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The quality of it all dried up. And after Bass was dismembered, there was no reason to be there, because more and more I believe that it wasn't about the research.
It wasn't about the paranormal.
More and more I believe it was not about the paranormal, which there is paranormal activity at the ranch, don't get me wrong. But the more I dive into this, and the more I see, and the more I get documents emailed to me, and the more I talk to the scientists that were part of Bass, and the more I talk to other people within Bass, the more I get the impression that it never was about researching paranormal activity. It was simply a weapons research contract that was beneficial to not only the funder, but also the person that received the funds. I think it was a quid pro quo that happened. After all, this is what my feeling is at this point. I have some proof that I'm basing this on, but I will develop a lot more of it, and a lot more people are coming forward, and a lot more of this will be exposed, because it needs to. We're not hamsters. Maybe that flew in the 60s, maybe that was cool in the 70s. This is 2019. You don't do that to people.
Yeah, you do. Unfortunately, yep, you do, and that it's like I said, it's heartbreaking to kind of see all these realizations that are you are both dealing with, and it's been an interesting thing, and I'm very glad that we've documented this and the progression and the way your beliefs and feelings have changed, from the first interview. I think, the one thing that has been very steadfast in both you and Chris Bartell is the fact that there is something very real, very important going on there. There's something paranormal going on there. There is a place that deserves to be researched, that deserves to be honored and held sacred. And, and I think that just to know, for you to see you guys question what you were exposed to, and why you weren't given any answers or tools to cope with that, and then why this big paranormal narrative, the fear, the threat, the scary place, the big, there's so many questions now that are coming up about this, and then you have to shine a light on people that have been promoting this. It's like, what is your gain in this? And if are you a good enough investigator that you maybe saw that there was something more to this?
Well, I'll tell you something more to this. Is one of the guys that was actually a medium level manager went nuts. Tony, who was a team member, committed suicide. There has been a lot of stuff going on, and I don't know to what level the exposure was part of this. And the more and more I look at the facts, this is not based on what I think. I think my first interview with you was based on my impressions, right, and what I believe to be true. It has certainly changed over the last 5 months. And you know what I really find interesting as well is the amount of attacks that we have, you as well as I did, I have received from the lowest level denominators, from really the useful idiots. The amounts of attacks have been just unbelievable. I mean, I am labeled as I got PTSD, I'm mentally unstable. They called you all kinds of choice words and tried to discredit you. Rest assured, I was a cop for over 10 years, and in the military for over 15 at this point. Rest assured, I do not have PTSD, and the way they went after us, trying to assassinate our characters, was just shameful. I received a glitter bomb in the mail that exploded, and other things. And so,
how would somebody get your address? I mean,
it tells me that we're on the right track. It really tells me that we're onto something, because the level of intimidation that's put forth is it's increasing, and it's really, really orchestrated. And I further believe
and that's apparent. I mean, you look at some of the negative posts and some of the things that have come out, and you look at the people that are tagged in these posts, and that is interesting. That's all I'm going to say about that. But that certainly sums it up.
Actually, explore that a little bit.
That's all I'm going to say about it. But I think that it is interesting. This is again, I just feel so strongly that there is something important and sacred and special. I will say that I am very grateful that the new owner has the ranch, and he's actually doing good work and scientifically looking into what's taking place at the ranch. I think that is incredible. I support everyone involved in that project and wish them the best. But then, you go back to everything that happened, the building of this narrative, the people getting funding, manipulating a community, instilling fear. And I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, when all of this airs out, when all of this becomes very public and the myths are shattered, this is pretty groundbreaking.
We're no longer the good soldiers and airmen that just followed blindly into something, because there are possible long-term effects that we did not sign up for, and we want answers, and we want to know what happened.
And you deserve them.
And I will not, at this point fingers. I will not go after specific individuals. However, I am building a list of people and I'm creating a timeline. I'm creating a who's who and how this went down. And when that time comes, and I just need maybe another, I'm about 70% there. When I feel strongly enough that I can put this on the table and have it to the point where you cannot defute, and I'm about 75% there, then I will open that chapter. Meanwhile, I absolutely expect that after the show and after the stuff that went out on Twitter, that the level of threat is going to increase. And make no mistake, I mean, we're prepped for it. Bring it, because after all, it's going to come open. Too many people are in the know at this point, and too many people are coming forward. And you cannot, whoever you are, and you know who you are, you cannot silence us any longer, anymore, because all your ranch narrative is built on sand.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I feel like I'm shell-shocked with everything. I know you do too. I know Chris Bartell does as well. You both, served your country. You have very serious questions that deserve to be addressed. And I hope that something comes out. I'm grateful that you have chosen to come forward. And like I said, I'm sorry to have to see you guys go through this, because it's really unfortunate. And what I want to just kind of impart to everybody is, please, I know that we like to look to certain figures in quote unquote ufology because you think they're bringing us the truth. And in my opinion, they're steering the narrative, and they are making money off of good people, and they're not putting forward accurate information, and people are getting hurt.
Well, not just getting hurt. I just don't want to find out like all these people that were told back in Nam, like, hey, Agent Orange is no big deal, and now they're all dying off. I don't want to be like signing off this planet in 10 years for something that I did not even know I was exposed to.
Right.
Is it so hard to ask for what did you do? What happened? What were we exposed to? Collectively, what did you research on us? What are the findings? And has something changed? Why did you check our brains as hard as you did? Is there a physiological change in our brain structure? Now? I want to know, because it's my life.
Right, and you deserve that. And I think at the end of the day, answers should, you both deserve that.
We all deserve that.
And I think our community deserves to have good information. This is really, again, just kind of punched me in the gut. I'm Erica Lukes here with Chris Marks. I'm going to be here next Friday with Chris Bartell and another special guest. We'll continue to work on this expose of Skinwalker Ranch. Have a wonderful weekend and stick around for Willie Miranda. He will be up next.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting